Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. A little bit of a side project here today that's going to tie in with the 1113 saga a little bit. We're down here by Mr. 212 grader, which is another D3400 diesel engine, much like we've been building for 1113. You can probably recognize some of these parts and pieces in here. A few minor differences with a grader, but pretty much the same engine. So things are starting to melt out a little bit. We can see the tracks on the old RD6 again anyway. And we're going to have to get the radiator off the 212 today. Look at starting the repair process for it. We'll see if we can transition here. Get in where you guys can see something. Where the upper pipe goes in, right up here. That solder joint let loose on us here towards the end of last summer and started leaking coolant a little bit. So probably best just to get the whole radiator and surround and everything off, get the core out of there, and we'll see about getting that core up to do some repair. And as long as we're taking a trip to the radiator shop, we'll get 1113's radiator and probably the one off of 2115 as well, just in case they may need, you know, some parts and pieces. So we're going to begin that process down here. It's pretty straightforward, really. Hood comes off. We got a couple oil cooler lines here that need to come off. We have the connection up there, plus a couple of those braces. They're going to have to come off. Lower connection is going to have to come apart. And then you have the 8 mounting bolts that hold the radiator and surround and shell and everything to the lower support. Not too bad of a job. Got Senior on the way here. He's got some gloves and some tools. So we'll get going. Look at the oil cooler. That doesn't look bad, really.
No leaks.
Pretty darn clean. Even has the old tag on it yet.
Got the last bolt on the bottom to take out. That's all loose, only broke 2 of them. Got the oil cooler lines here, and we are having issues up here, so we figured we'll get this out of the way. That way we can work on it on off the machine. That way it should come out a little better, so we don't have to ruin anything.
Yeah,
here.
we'd hate to twist too hard on those fittings and ruin something with the oil cooler.
So anyway, we got the oil cooler's looking good. I see no leaks. Bottom come right out. We've had that out before, so that was a pretty easy one. We got the top loose up here, so we're ready to slide this thing back and get her up to the shop.
Okay, you're going to have the 2 broken bolts over here are probably going to be sticking down a little bit.
Okay, lift. Okay.
There you go.
Turn the fan.
Yeah, we're on the shroud a little bit. There we go. I got the cooler lines out of the oil filter.
Okay, we're clear there.
All right. I'm ready to lift.
Just a minute, let me get my footing. Okay, go. And the tipper back.
Yeah, there you go.
Keep the oil to a minimum.
All right, radiator's off the 212. Got all the openings covered. Everything's put to bed here, ready to sit for a while. That's the hard one. Rounding up the other 2 are going to be a lot easier. Okay, back at what's left of the old 5J 2115 carcass. 1113's future hood right here. We'll take back into her here. Pulled this radiator off 2115 when we took the engine out of it. What, probably a year ago now?
Yep.
Covered all the openings on it. So here's radiator number 2. We'll be rounding up. And finally we'll get 1113's original radiator dug out of the shed here. Haul that up to the shop. All right, next phase now is tear them down. Senior's starting to get the core out of the shroud on this one. This is 212 grader. Again, it started leaking around this inlet at the top right here. So we're going to get the shroud off, get it out of the surround, get that thing out ready for the radiator shop. And we also have to still get these oil cooler lines off in the process. Here's 1113's original radiator. And you remember 1113's original block froze really hard. So we're anticipating there's going to be some corresponding freeze damage with this core too, although it looks like it's in almost pristine condition, but there could be a lot of underlying damage. Looks like we've heaved a little bit around this upper part here, and it took a hit to the top at one time, kind of caved in the surround, and it's also kind of buggered the neck, the filler neck, and it's kind of bent off to the side like that. So we're going to have to get that core out, and then we have 2115's radiator right here, also waiting for disassembly. So the goal from the 3 cores here is to get 2 serviceable ones. Best case scenario, 3 serviceable cores. So I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. And I tell you, 1113's old core looks pretty darn clean. Shame this thing was allowed to freeze. Oh my gosh. Usual amount of debris settled at the bottom. A lot of pine needles, a little bit of grease in there, but not bad. This is probably going to drip a little bit, yeah. That made that oil cooler a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
That must have been for like a air dam at one point.
I think so.
This old belting. Even 1113's oil cooler doesn't look bad. A little bit of dried gumbo down there, but seen a lot worse. Just working on trying to get 1113's core out of the surround right now, and I can tell you guys this bottom tank has been bulged quite a bit, and you know, from the freezing and everything that happened, and to say that that makes it really fun to try and get it out of this surround that doesn't begin to scratch the surface. I think this downward dent up here right now is not really helping me much either. Just working it little by little. This is a little bit different style core than what the 212 has. The 212's core ended about where the lower tank starts on this one. Of course, 1113, it's an early version of the D2, so it stands to reason that its core is also a little bit different from everybody else. There, we got it. Oh, that thing's bulged. Wow. All right, we got the grater core out. 1113's original core out. Those are both prepped, ready to go to the radiator shop. Senior's working on the last of the broken off bolts in the bottom of the 212 grater radiator surround. We had both of these down here broke on us. The other 6 came out of there. You've used heat on that thing, what, 3 different times?
3 different times.
Soaking it, but it's moving pretty good now. I think we're going to leave this oil cooler stuff alone. We tried some light heat on these fittings. Oh, look at that. Got it. All the bolts are out. That's good. Yeah, we tried some light heat on these fittings. We didn't want to get too crazy with it because these ends are only soldered on, so if we put too much heat down here, we'd risk some serious damage. And I think we decided, since the rest of that cooler core looks nice and dry, nothing's leaking, we're just going to leave this stuff alone. Wait until it becomes a problem, if it becomes a problem, to deal with any of that. All right, everybody, here's the lineup. I think this is about as far as we're going to go for disassembly. We're going to take and get into all 3 of these. We got 2115s down there on the end still intact. We'll get to that one in a minute. But anyway, 212 grater, radiator surround right here. Radiator is out. It's cleaned up well enough to send down to those guys at the radiator shop. Hopefully they can fix this leaking seam up here. And the rest of the core seems pretty good. We'll let them check it out when it's there. Now, 1113's radiator right here. I mentioned the dent that it suffered up here in the top. That also came down and actually crunched part of the top tank, and it also bent this this filler neck back a little bit. That's something that hopefully they can remedy at the shop. And man, core looks really good on this thing, but you can see I left it tipped up at the front down here on the seam. It is really bulged from where this thing froze. This is bulged out right here. That's bulged out right there. Flipped it around. You can see the big dent right here where that filler neck got crunched back, and it also popped this seam for that inlet up at the top. So there's work to be done all over on this one, and of course every bit of that core is suspect as well. So hopefully this turns into a repairable unit, because 1113 is the early style radiator, much different from what came out of the grater, and also what's in 2115. 2115's core looks like it's the same as the grater. Main difference is this bottom tank. You can see 1113's is a full bottom tank, pretty much goes down as far as that lower outlet, whereas these newer ones, much less of a bottom tank, and the outlet sticks down well below. It looks like any one of these cores would transfer into any one of the surrounds. So that is promising in case they can't fix 1113's core. I may be able to send 2115's up there, get it worked over, and fit a core like that into 1113's surround. I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. And like I mentioned just a minute ago, we're holding 2115's old radiator in reserve for now. We didn't take anything apart. It's got kind of the toughest grill screen. It's got kind of the toughest surround. It's got kind of the toughest looking core, but like I said, this thing never leaked for me years and years. So it does have a good fan shroud on it though. That's one thing that surprises me. They ripped so many other of those unnecessary pieces off of 2115. Somehow they kept a good fan shroud. So I guess we'll take our victories wherever we can get them. So that's pretty much, well, the little project we had going here. I'm going to run those cores up the radiator shop tomorrow, and just trying to think ahead here and just keep things kind of taken care of, you know, before we get to the point where we need to get something done with, you know, a core or something like that, and then avoid any possible downtime waiting for repairs. I'd rather get that stuff underway while I have other things that I can do here, and then we can get everything hopefully timed just about right to keep the project ticking along. So that was today's adventure. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please tune in again.